This House is in session. Christchurch, East Central.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to...
Your replan?
Sorry.
You're
I'm wrapping up a bit.
You're wrapping up?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want it?
Sorry.
So, the member for St. James South.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. One of the things that has been brought sharply to my attention, Mr. Speaker, as I have lived as a Barbadian in this country over the years, coming from childhood feeling safe, coming into teenage years, taking for granted that which was around me, coming into young adulthood, seeking to build a life, but without recognizing or understanding what it takes to make Barbados work. It is only, Mr. Speaker, as I got into business for myself, when I became a senator, and now that I have the privilege of representing the good people of St. James South, that I have been able to recognize that it takes more than wishing things are good in a country. For a country to work, there must be people who go to work every day with the knowledge, the competence, the good nature, the commitment to make a country work so that people can adequately pursue their lives. And Mr. Speaker, I have looked at the situation in which Barbados has found itself. Never in my lifetime have I seen our country in such dire straits. But I know that across the length and breadth of Barbados, there is no deep understanding of how dire those straits are and were. That when the Barbados Labour Party came to office, this country was on the brink of collapse. We were faced, Mr. Deputy Speaker, with the very real reality, pardon the words, of devaluation. And devaluation for the average citizen means that the income which they have in their homes at present would only be able to purchase half of what it does now. And that should every household face that, the suffering and the pain in this country would have been unbearable. Mr. Speaker, it would have been unbearable because Barbados, unlike its sister territories, is no longer agricultural in its nature. If you have a devaluation in Jamaica, or Trinidad, or Guyana, or Dominica, or St. Lucia, people can still get up and eat every day because the ground is constantly yielding its fruit to the citizen. The breadfruit is there, the yams are there, the potatoes are there, fruit is there. You can still eat. But when you have a country as urbanized as Barbados, where the practice of backyard farming, of having around you fruits and vegetables readily accessible, that part of Barbadian life has gone. And therefore, in a situation of devaluation, people in this country would have starved. And so the work, the labor, and the effort of the Barbados Labour Party on coming to office to stave off that devaluation from the backs of Barbadians acted as a tremendous act of deliverance to our country and to give families a fighting chance to recover from a lost decade and to recover from the worst and most corrupt governance we have ever known in our history as a people. So when I stand here to commend the Honourable Member from Christchurch East Central, I'm sorry. Yeah, East has worked very hard as well too. But the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, he has worked hard. I've watched the work that he has done. I've seen the Prime Minister throw task after task to him, and he stands like a rock. Some tasks exceedingly difficult. But he has taken all with grace, with courage, and he has walked with calm assurance with the heavy load that has been placed on his shoulders. And I want to commend him for that. I've come to admire how he performs. And Barbados is indeed blessed by a son of the soil that has been present at a time such as this. Mr. Speaker, our nation is accustomed to a land of plenty. It is accustomed to enjoying a lifestyle that is second to none in the region. We are accustomed to a quality of life that we have taken for granted. But that quality of life was at risk. And therefore, the very necessary but painful steps taken by the Barbados Labour Party administration were indeed critical to our survival. There were three things, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that could have taken us under during these last 6 months. One was the high debt of government, where we did not have sufficient resources to be able to finance the social services that are absolutely necessary for Barbadians. And that situation was continuing to deteriorate because the last government would not stop borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, therefore making it more and more difficult for us to take care of everyday things. The second thing was the foreign exchange, that we were within weeks of not having sufficient to ensure that goods could come into the port for the well-being of the people and for the functioning of their businesses. And therefore, there would have been an imminent collapse of the Barbadian economy. The cost of government was excessive. And the pressure that we experienced in terms of how we were going to turn the ship of state around was before us. How are we going to do this in a way that would guarantee the survival of the nation and give us a fighting chance to be competitive in a world that was going on about its business, seeking to advance its own fortunes while leaving us behind? And Mr. Speaker, Barbados had some tough choices, but it was going to need an administration that had the courage, that had the knowledge, and that had the heart to come here, not to rip off, to come here not to steal, to come here not to play the fool, but to come here to do the people's business with all seriousness and with all confidence. And so, we had to do debt restructuring. That was absolutely necessary for the survival of the country. But at the same time, we had to avoid devaluation. So how were we going to accomplish that objective? We had to come up with a suite of initiatives that would do the job. And as painful as they're absolutely necessary for us to survive. And therefore we asked the country, the entire country, we have to carry this burden together. And therefore, we introduced a number of measures that help to spread the burden across all the various groups, asking each group to carry the load so that we could get out of this very difficult and painful place in which we found ourselves. And Mr. Speaker, it has started to work. Because we were dealing with our affairs in a responsible manner, because we were doing the right things to set the ship of state right, we gained that endorsement from Standard & Poor's, where we were able to go up 4 notches in terms of an upgrade, indicating that Barbados was a place that was turning around and sending a powerful signal out into the international community that Barbados was going to be ready for business. But Mr. Speaker, we had something else to face. Something that we had not planned for, something that was not known, something that was not shared with the country. That the then Minister of Commerce and International Business, the ex and very past representative of St. James South, agreed and signed a document promising that Barbados would execute tax convergence by December 2018. He did that last year, September 2017. And not a word to this country, not a word to a soul in this country. And we come to office and find this sitting there waiting for us to be done. Now, the matter of tax convergence, Mr. Speaker, is not new. Barbados has known for a long time it would need to do it. But how could we do it? When we were last in administration, we started discussing it. And the question always was, where are we going to put the convergence so that you do not have flight of your international business, and at the same time, you do not lose the necessary revenue that you need to keep the ship of state afloat. And it was difficult. It was difficult because you don't know how the international business community is going to react or respond. It's a risk that you're taking. Where are you going to put it? And this new administration found this on their plate with no advance announcement, and we then had to deal with it in a situation in which we had already put in place a BERT program that was accepted by the IMF, where we had promised to do certain things in a particular way, got a sign-off from them on the matter, and then we were faced with this tax convergence. But Mr. Speaker, again, there was no panic, We recognize what it meant. We recognize the challenge it played in our affairs, that if we didn't get it right, we would find ourselves in a situation where we would lose tax revenue. But I am happy to say today that by dint of consultation, negotiation, good economic management, that we were able to find just that spot that we believe the international business community would absorb the additional increase, and that the domestic businesses would still be making a contribution to our tax dollars. And so we brought to this Honourable Chamber what those changes would be. And the reports coming from our former international business sector is that people are basically saying, we can live with this. We can live with this because we do not want to be in a jurisdiction that could be called a tax haven. Because of the nature of our business, our brand, our standing in the world, it is absolutely necessary that we are in a jurisdiction that does charge tax, but it cannot be too high as to cause them to fly back to where they've come from. And so Barbados has sought to hit just that spot. And as was shared by my colleague, that spot would bring tax neutrality, meaning that what we would lose from lowering the business rate for our domestic businesses would be amply made up for by the increase that would be paid by our former international businesses. So we're satisfied, we're confident that that particular initiative, well planned, well thought out, will produce the dividends that we need in order to remain balanced. And so again, I want to applaud the Prime Minister and the economic team for doing an excellent job of facing what is a major challenge that all of our sister territories now have to face. They too are going to have to do it at some point in time. And they're watching to see how Barbados is dealing with the matter. And no doubt some will follow in our footsteps. So I want to congratulate the Prime Minister, and I want to congratulate our economic team on what they've done so far. So, Mr. Speaker, every Barbadian has to recognize that at this time, all of us are going to carry some load. All of us are going to put our hands to the plow. That now our future depends on us. We are now the craftsmen of our fate. We are celebrating 52 years of independence. We have grown up. Nobody is going to carry us again. Nobody is going to be mommy and daddy for us. We are a maturing nation, and we have reached a stage where we can have confidence in ourselves, confidence in our abilities, confidence in our innovation to grab the horns of our future and craft a path that will take us there. And we are not afraid of that journey. But it is going to take all of our businesses, all of our workers, all of the political class, every single person doing his or her part. Now, Mr. Speaker, we've just come through one of the longest periods of recession known to Barbados. More than 10 years now. And many businesses have been having difficulty throughout this sustained journey of hardship. And many of them have fallen behind in their obligations, whether it's VAT, NIS, whether it is payments to suppliers. And many of them are now looking to this government to have the confidence that something will be done to create a pathway for economic growth that they can recover. Many of them have been holding on, hoping, waiting for rescue. Up to the other day, a very well-known company, I passed by where they normally have one of their outlets. I went to buy something, only to find that the place was empty. They had been holding on for so long, and now they just didn't have any more gas to get any further. And so one of the things that has to happen in relation to taxation is that companies need to have a plan, and that's one of the reasons why we put in the plan with a long period for people to be able to write themselves in relation to what they owe to government, because government has recognized that many of our companies are limping. Many of them no longer have reserves. And our first imperative is for them to survive, for them to hold on to employment. That is one of the reasons why this government has sought to fast-track repayments to businesses, because many of them would find it difficult to take another step further without some relief. And that relief will allow them to maintain the employment so that we do not find ourselves with unemployment taking place in the private sector. Now, the extra boon that they gained when we lowered the taxes for domestic businesses, this will come into effect and will be felt by them when they have to pay in the following cycle. What this administration has asked is that they look at what they will be saving in terms of the tax that they will pay, and to convert it into things that will help the economy to continue to grow and advance. One of the things I am hopeful they will do is that they will start to employ a few Barbadians, even one. If every business hired one, if half the businesses in Barbados hired even one, you could have 4,000 people re-employed. That would make so much difference in homes in Barbados if one person could get that job. They could make further investments. They could invest in expanding the existing business and maybe employ 10 more people. One of the things I hope they do with this boon that has come to them is that businesses begin to look at the opportunities for trade. I will say it, and I will say again every time I get the chance. We are only 280,000 people for 11,000 businesses to generate profit, and more profit year after year after year. There's only one way for them to do it without leaving our shores, and that is to charge the Barbadian consumer more for the same product and the same service, and that is a disservice to the consumers. In so small a nation, every business that is started must think into the future that they will have to export, they will have to trade. That expansion must come from getting more markets from overseas. Mr. Speaker, I just returned from a Quartet meeting in Guyana, which is the CARICOM organ for trade and economic development. And one of the things, Mr. Speaker, that is on the minds and hearts of the ministers of foreign trade in this region is how are we going to create more opportunities for new businesses across this region. So our eyes are turned to Haiti. Haiti right now is importing eggs. Our eyes are turned to Suriname. Suriname is a large country with a small population, and it has tremendous opportunities for trade, for agriculture, for tourism. Our eyes have turned to Guyana. Guyana by 2020 will be pumping millions of gallons of oil, and ExxonMobil is publishing that all across the world, including a Facebook page that has more than 2 million people who follow it. And their stock is going up on the stock exchange because of the oil find in Guyana. Guyana is about to explode with wealth. And therefore there are opportunities for expansion into the region. So all that we are doing here in this chamber, all that we do in cabinet is to try to take Barbados and correct what is wrong and put in place the resources and the initiatives that will allow our enterprises to take off, and in taking off, generate the employment, generate the foreign exchange, and generate the government revenue which we need. That is what we are about every single day. Why? Because if we can generate the economic growth, then we can look at solving the social problems, because we will have the resources to respond. That by generating jobs, Mr. Speaker, we're going to be able to get the boys off the block, because they would have a stake in this country. They'll be able to go and start a business. They'll be able to go and get training that they can be employed in a job. They'll be able to take care of their families. If we get the economic growth right, and women are able to get work, that they're able to take care of their children, and they do not have to prostitute themselves, prostitute their health, prostitute their freedom of choice in order to put bread in their children's mouths, women will be able to escape the abuse that they're often subjected to. We are now celebrating, Mr. Speaker, 16 days of activism around ending violence to women. Women are an important part of our lives, of our country. They carry the intelligence. They carry the emotional strength. They carry the well-being of this nation in their minds, in their hearts, in their arms, in their wombs. And any country that takes good care of its women is a country that will be wealthy. They have tracked the well-being of countries from time immemorial. And anytime women are liberated, educated, nurtured, sheltered, and have their rights secured, it makes a tremendous difference to the economic development of that country. And that is why the gender agenda is critical in everything that we do. And Mr. Speaker, one of the things that must become a part of what we are doing, and we have sought to do that in the programs that we have put before this country, is to make sure that every single person in the country is engaged in some project or initiative which we have put on the table. I want to encourage Barbadians. I want to say something to you. We have a future to craft. November 30th is the day on which we celebrate our independence, and that is coming up on Friday. We tend to focus primarily on our traditional foods, on our traditional music, wearing our national colors. But I want Barbadians this November to make this independence one with a difference. We've come through a very difficult time. But recovery is ahead.
2 more minutes. 2 more minutes.
Thank you. Recovery is ahead. But recovery calls for each one of us. So this independence, I'm asking each Barbadian, make a pledge as to what you will do to help take the nation forward. Make a pledge as to what you can do to help further our economic development. Make a pledge for what you can do to help in the community, in the society, by giving part of your time back to help build up our communities, to help take care of our children, to help take care of the elderly. I have been given the privilege to serve at the highest level in this country, and I'm grateful to the people of St. James South for it. I want to utter my recommitment to them and their well-being on November 30th, to declare to them that I will work with all of my heart, all of my being, all of the resources that are at my disposal to help them to be successful. I want to pledge to my country that they will have in me a faithful servant who will serve in their best interests at all times. And I want to encourage every Barbadian, make a pledge. Decide what you will do for this nation and go and do it. We can get out of where we are. We can carry this load. But as we work together, we will bring the nation to a place of prosperity, a place of growth, a place of peace and security. Let us be craftsmen of our fate and do this work together for the sake of our nation and for the sake of our future. I'm obliged to you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for St. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I rise to make a contribution to this debate to validate the tax measures that would have been introduced into this Parliament some months ago. And I think it necessary, as I speak to my constituents, I recognize that it is incumbent upon me, and probably incumbent upon us who have been elected by the people, to keep informing them and sharing with them the road that we are traveling. That is important because when a shoe begins to pinch, it is not often that we remember how it looked when we first saw it in the store, or how it felt, or how we felt when we first brought it home. We have a responsibility to our people. We've been elected to lead, and lead and educate is what we ought to do. I want to craft my contribution around the ideas of certainty and confidence. The Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central this morning would have spoken quite eloquently to the ideas of confidence, and I would want to build on what he would have shared with us today. In our Western society, our Western economic construct, confidence is critical because our economies are what we call market economies. People make decisions to buy, people make decisions to sell, people make decisions to produce or not to produce, and those decisions are based on their feelings about, their expectations about what will happen in the future. And so when there is confidence, people step out, do things, spend money, invest. When there is no confidence, people hold back. And this happens not just to businesses or people who we may consider to be sophisticated. This happens to everybody. All of us in St. Peter, in Rosehill, where I live, in Maynards, in Six Mains, in Blackbess, Boscobel, in Negron, wherever people are, that is how we operate. If we do not know if we're going to get paid next week, then we don't spend the same amount of money in the supermarket this week. Confidence is what drives economic activity. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, confidence is based on certainty. Certainty is what generates confidence. Now, this Barbados Labour Party government has always been and continues to be a thinking government. So that when we came into office, well, long before we came into office, the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, the member for Christchurch, for St. Michael South Central, and all the other persons who were part of the economic team recognized very early on, maybe about 2 years ago, or maybe even more, that we had two principal issues that needed to be addressed. There was the issue of the deficit, the financing gap, as was referred to earlier. That needed to be closed because any deficit like that is unsustainable. You can't just keep borrowing to prop up an economy or a household. And then there was the matter of the foreign reserves. And so the economic team would have crafted a plan that has now become known as the BERT plan, the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan. A plan that we are all proud of because it is our plan. It is also a plan that has enough credibility to have received the support of international financial agencies and international ratings agencies. In that program, the BERT program, the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program, there were a number of facets to that program. The taxation that we are speaking to today was one aspect of the program. That aspect aimed at closing the financing gap, dealing with the deficit from a revenue perspective. This Barbados Labour Party government is not like the previous DEMS government, who believe that everything can be done through taxation. And so, if I may quote, but use the correct context of the words used by the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, they were the ones, and I know he agreed, he having been with us before he went out from among us, he agreed then that that government was the government that was attempting to tax us to death. This Barbados Labour Party government, even in its tax policy, even in its levying of taxes, recognize that a tax must be for a specific purpose. It must be a fair tax. It must not be a compounding tax, like the one we had to repeal early in our term of office. The municipal solid waste tax. NSRL. The NSRL, that was the compounding one. The solid waste tax was the one that we had to march against and were successful in getting it withdrawn or repealed. Those tax measures, Mr. Deputy Speaker, spoke specifically to areas that all Barbadians recognized were areas that needed attention. We have had, and still to some degree have, issues with our sewage system and our waste disposal. That is an area that must be addressed if we as Barbadians are to enjoy a decent standard of living. We are not fixing issues for tourists. We are fixing issues for those of us who live here every day, all year. And so the tax imposition, where that was the focus, was necessary because it was an issue that needed to be addressed. There are also issues, and have been for quite a while, in our healthcare system. And so part of what we would have conceptualized was revenue measures aimed at dealing with those matters, the matter of providing health care for a country. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I feel it necessary to say at this point to you, to the Chamber, and to Barbados, and I want to say this with as much feeling as possible. Nothing in life is free. There are some services that are provided to us as Barbadians free at the point of delivery or at the point of receipt. Now, while I heard a member from Christchurch West, and if I may veer a little bit, salvation is free, but it came with a heavy cost. And so even if we go back to, if we wax theological, we would recognize that even salvation has a cost. But I am happy to accept it as God's free gift. In like manner, when we attend the QEH or polyclinic, or we have our garbage collected, we accept a free gift from the government, from the country. However, there is a cost to the provision of those services. And what Barbadians have already begun to recognize is that unlike the last government, when taxes were being collected and we were told that they were for particular purposes, people were wondering what was happening to the money. Because the taxes, we believe, were being collected, but the services that were supposed to be provided were not being provided. Now, we are happy to be able to say, for example, that even though we have not fully solved the South Coast sewage issue, that Barbadians, not just on the South Coast, Barbadians generally have been recognizing that the money we've been collecting has so far been wisely spent. The filth that was once a part of the walking and driving experience and the living experience on the South Coast is now not the kind of experience that it used to be. When we collect taxes, we use those taxes for the benefit of the people from whose pockets the money came. And that is the legacy, that is the practice of this Barbados Labour Party government. But tax impositions was not the only aspect of the recovery program. There was also the matter of the restructuring of the debt. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this aspect of the program was probably the most time-consuming aspect, and it also carried with it lots of emotion, because if it did not work out the way we wanted it to work out, the impact on employment in the public sector would have been much more severe than it will turn out to be. And I say that not minimizing the impact that separation of workers, of human beings from the public service is having. It is having significant impact. But I'm just sharing with the Chamber and with Barbados that if that struggle with some of them were the owners of, and some of them are just the managers of capital, if we did not achieve what we set out to achieve, the impact would have been much more severe. And so we sought to address on the revenue side, we sought to deal with the expenditure, but focusing more on the holders of debt rather than the workers of the country. And I will not tire, Mr. Deputy Speaker, of saying that this Labour Party that was born out of a struggle for workers will not put workers on the front line. In the tax imposition, one of the things that took place was that the tax band at the higher level was increased. And it is, for us as a party, it is simple. Those who have more have a greater obligation. We are not going to make the poorest people suffer. And I want to give the Honourable Leader of the Opposition the assurance, and I'm speaking now, attempting to speak on behalf of the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central. Matters like the reverse tax credit are not matters that we will put on a back burner. The reverse tax credit is a creature of this Barbados Labour Party. We know why it was designed, why it was implemented, and sufficient that those situations still occur. And there are still people who are under pressure in their pockets at the supermarket, and those people will be looked after. But this party believes that to whom much is given, much is expected. And so those at the higher level will have to take additional burden. And the tax situation in Barbados was not one that was just laid on the backs of ordinary workers. Those at those higher levels were asked to take on a larger burden of the adjustment as we proceeded. Those revenues, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that would have come to government, and when I say government, we ought to be very clear that government represents the people. Government is not some autonomous entity somewhere. It is represented by, but the people who have placed the responsibility of leadership in our hands have allowed us, through the collection of those taxes, not just to address the matter of the sewage system on the South Coast, not just to begin the process of paying the income tax refunds for those people who have suffered over the past years without receiving those refunds, but those funds have also been used to increase the pensions for those persons at the bottom of the pension scale. Those funds are also being used, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to pay the salary increases for public servants which we promised and which we delivered on almost immediately upon assuming office in this country. We have been using the people's money for the benefit of the people. I want, as Minister responsible for social partnership relations, to thank all partners for their maturity and their hard work in dedication to the task of rescuing and rebuilding this country. We have had many meetings, many consultations. They've been tough, but we have shared with each other. And we have left those meetings on the same page, so that, and this is one of the things, having interacted with some of my colleagues in the OECS in recent weeks, one of the things that amazes some of my colleagues is that the information shared and the decisions taken at the social partnership are so clear to the partners that if an entity steps out of line, for example, in its approach to the separation of workers from the public service, a leader in the trade union movement is able to correctly say, this is not what we agreed. And so the parties will go back to the table and make sure that what was agreed is what is implemented. That is how this Barbados Labour Party manages this country. We manage transparently, and we thank our partners, business and workers and their representatives, for their hard work and their commitment to nation building. We've been able to achieve essentially consensus that allows us to move forward with rescuing this country. I began, Mr. Deputy Speaker, talking about confidence and the need for certainty to build that confidence. And it's been mentioned quite a lot this morning, most recently by the Honourable Member for St. James South, who, I must agree with her, will be member for St. James South for a very long time to come. And doing a good job. And I probably should say publicly in support of her, I have to tell the people from Haynesville and other places in St. James South that sometimes at cabinet, you're not supposed to bring tears out of school, but I'm going to run the risk. I don't think the Prime Minister will fire me for it. But sometimes that honourable member gets on as well. The only place in Barbados is St. James South. And sometimes we have to remind her that there are other places in Barbados as well, but she does a great job. She spoke to the matter of the confidence shown in Barbados and in our economic recovery and transformation plan by the international ratings agencies. It speaks, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to the thoroughness of the approach to economic management of this Barbados Labour Party. On assuming office, we took a decision to suspend debt payments. We took that decision knowing that we would immediately, on making the announcement, receive a downgrade. We took it knowing, however, that if we hadn't done it, all the shopping that some Barbadians are doing in Bridgetown for independence and for Christmas may not have been possible, because we may not have had the foreign reserves to allow merchants in Bridgetown and across Barbados to be able to stock for this independence and the following Christmas season. We took the decision, a hard decision, but we were elected, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to take the hard decisions. We were elected and we've made the decisions knowing that there could very well be political fallout. but we've been elected to properly manage this economy and to ensure that it is restored not just to stability, but to growth and ultimately to development. The response not only of the rating agencies, but of the multilaterals has been encouraging is not the right word, is not the complete word, heartwarming is not the complete word. It has almost been fascinating for me how those multilaterals have responded. I need to thank the economic team, and I think the member who's been foremost in this thrust would be the member for St. Michael South Central. And I think we must thank her for her engagement with the multilateral agencies. We have seen a situation where so strong has been their support for us that they have been almost at the point of saying to us, how can we help you? How can we offer you concessionary finance? How can we offer you technical assistance? How can we assist you with capacity building? How can we assist you with modernizing the way that government does business? And so the Prime Minister, the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast, has been able to sign a number of agreements with CAF, with the Caribbean Development Bank, and with the Inter-American Development Bank, because they recognize, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that this government is a government that is serious, that is knowledgeable, and that is bold in its attempt to rescue this country. And they are prepared to support us. And I think it is important for the public to recognize the goodwill that lies out there in the international community. People want to help us because they recognize that we are on the right road. And they, like us, want to minimize the pain that some of our people have already begun to feel and will be feeling in the months to come. We as a party, we are not running from the impact of our policies. We recognize that there will be some pain, but there is sufficient goodwill. There is sufficient certainty and confidence returning to this country, to this economy and society, that that period of pain will be much shorter than it ordinarily would be. The last government, there was no confidence because there was no certainty. There was no certainty because there was no plan. There was no plan because they had no direction. We bring to government the complete opposite. We bring direction. We bring a plan. It is generating certainty, and confidence is returning to this country. Businesses are beginning to invest again. I've spoken, me personally, to one potential investor who said to me that he wanted to invest, I think it was about 2 years ago, and refused to do so because he was being asked to pass money under the table in order to get his project through the planning process and the concession process to execution. He refused to invest. Last government not only had no plan, but they also presided over the inflicting of unnecessary pain on the people of the country. Because sufficient that some of these projects had come to fruition, then the stagnation that we experienced would not have been the kind of stagnation. And we had a past member for St. Michael South, who was blaming a recession that nobody else in the world knows really what recession is talking about. There's never been a recession, not even the Great Recession of the 30s, that lasted 11 years. Barbados could have done better if our government was either not corrupt or not perceived to be corrupt. We could have done better, but confidence is returning and investment is taking place. And I want to thank those investors. I've come out of the private sector. I know that people do not put down money unless they believe they're going to get a return. And I do not think it is fair to expect them to put money down if they're not reasonably certain of a return. And so this Barbados Labour Party, bringing with it the certainty that comes with a well-thought-through plan, has now provided for potential investors, for business people, that certainty that allows them to say, I will put some money down into foundations, into the ground, so that we can get this economy moving again.
Member has 2 more minutes.
This Barbados Labour Party is a caring government. And I say that fully cognizant of the fact that there are people who over the last month, who last week, who this week will lose their jobs. But I say that this is a caring government because while there is pain, we have been going to great lengths, and I'm not going to say that we are perfect, but we have been going to great lengths to ensure that people do not fall through the cracks. We've already begun to engage. I met up to yesterday with leaders, faith-based leaders in this country, to reinforce government's desire to have them as full partners in ensuring that people do not fall through the cracks. Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I say this to Barbados, in this Barbados, with the Barbados Labour Party as the government of this country, we will make sure that people do not starve, that they are not put out of their homes. But government cannot do it alone. And so, as I said to those faith-based leaders yesterday, I say to the country, and I am saying it within the context of my responsibility for developing the third sector, we want to engage with civil society organizations, faith-based organizations, non-governmental organizations in this work of rescuing. Because of the pain, we recognize that we will need to, this is going to need to be Team Barbados. And even as we approach our 52nd anniversary of independence, I want to ask civil society to continue its partnership. As a matter of fact, I want to ask civil society to deepen and strengthen its partnership with government on behalf especially of those who will hurt in this exercise. Civil society already contributes significantly, but I want to say to them this afternoon that government recognizes their work, recognizes their commitment to building a just society, and will continue to reach out to them as full partners. And to many of those organizations, we've already sent letters asking them to name their representatives to sit on the Social Justice Committee, which Cabinet has already approved. And so civil society will be fully recognized and fully incorporated into the social dialogue addressing the issues that affect people in this country, issues of justice, gender equality, issues of access to health care, education, issues of security. Those bread and butter issues will be addressed by the Social Justice Committee. And we are working fully with many partners. Caribbean Policy Development Center, they are almost completed on their white paper, a policy that they will submit to us, which we will build on to craft a policy for the building of a vital and vibrant third sector. We're also going to be working with other institutions that are already doing capacity building work, Aspire, 10 Habitat. We'll continue and deepen our work with them. And as we go through what will be, and what already is to some degree, this painful exercise, we are linking with all sectors of society to ensure that the people of Barbados, even as we rescue the country and place it on a footing that allows it to grow and to soar, we will ensure that they are not marginalized to the point where the suffering is too hard for them to bear. But we want to give them the assurance that as we come out of this period, they will share in the bounty that will come out of a new, vibrant, and growing economy. Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill to this Honourable House, and I want to ask Barbadians to stay the course as we rescue, rebuild, and restore this country.
Thank you.
I thank you.
Member for Christchurch Central.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I feel invigorated after the contributions of the members on this bill, because as hard as we've worked over the last 6 months, sir, the member for St. Peter alluded to create a culture of confidence once again in this country and to rebuild that trust with the people, that we have the opportunity, certainly in this independent season, to signal to Barbadians at home and abroad, and certainly to the rest of the world, that Barbados is indeed putting its house in order, and this is part, sir, of the process of achieving such. And so we are committed clearly to making sure that the good order that the people of Barbados are accustomed to with respect to the management of public finances, that we do those things, sir, that make people proud about the country in which they live. And whilst we accept that for a relatively short space of time, that the journey in of itself, sir, may be particularly arduous, but we know that the way that the government obviously conducts its business and the way that people see how the members in this space, the members of the government and the members of cabinet, how we conduct ourselves, because whether we like it or not, sir, we also have a reputation, sir, to rebuild. And that reputation, sir, is perhaps alongside the stability that we all agree should exist in Barbados, it is our reputation as a country, sir, that we know is at stake. And in the season of independence, sir, we as a country must be able to move forward with calm assurance that we can manage our own affairs and send that signal to all and sundry that Barbados is indeed open for business, but proper business, sir. And certainly the members of the government and we are committed, sir, to over the course of the next few years ensuring that, one, that this economy will grow through the measures that we will roll out over the next few months, but that growth, sir, is as inclusive as possible. Because as we seek to broaden the base with respect to taxation, we are cognizant that obviously the more persons that are employed, it means that the more revenue it is for the government to be able to collect. And as we go through the reforms within the tax system, we are intending to make sure that it is easier for the government to collect the very revenue that is being generated in the system, such that we don't have a situation, sir, where, as been the case in the past, we are certain going forward that the new revenues will be coming from new areas of activity rather than going back to the same source over and over and over again. And so whilst these particular measures were designed, sir, to serve a particular purpose in a certain context, our mission now, sir, is to make sure that the growth that we expect will be delivered through higher confidence across not just consumers, businesses, and investors, but certainly, sir, that the growth that we expect to see going forward, sir, will be from new areas. And with those areas being expanded and facilitated, such that we are able to leverage all the opportunities that exist now, and that we go after, sir, opportunities that are available globally, that it is that expansion into new areas, sir, and we encourage Barbadians, certainly in this period of independence, that we must be bold, sir, bold to go out into the world as Barbadians and compete in any space. And we must give ourselves the chance, sir, ourselves the chance at the government level, at the private sector level, at the individual level, sir. Because the truth is, Barbados has always been known, sir, for its global perspective. We understand the need for, not just in the traditional sense of tourists coming to Barbados for vacation, but we now must ensure that our citizens, sir, our citizens see the globe, the world, as a space in which any Barbadian can go and play whatever trade that they wish, and do so in a way that commands, sir, the kind of value added that we certainly expect people when they come here to pay for. And so it is in that context that we are setting about certainly the reforms within the tax system, but as the Prime Minister says, the training aspect, sir, of everything that we do in order to become world class in every aspect, because over the last 10 years we have been nothing even close to being world class, and it is unfortunate to have to make such an admission, but the reality, sir, is that we shall get there again, and people will start to look to Barbados as the example as to how to deal with crises without creating widespread hardship across large segments of the society. And so, sir, we, as I mentioned to you, we are on our way with respect to the Barbados economic recovery and transformation. And on a daily basis, we are monitoring our revenue, we are monitoring our expenditure, we are monitoring our foreign reserves, because, sir, as the government, for the first time, we know what we're spending today, and we know exactly how we're going to pay for it, sir. And the reality is that we are going to continue, sir, to make sure that the programs of government are the priorities that Barbadians expect them to be, because we want people, sir, to make sure that when they get up and go to work, when they get up and go to their businesses, and they generate the activity, and they earn the salaries, and they pay the taxes, that they do so knowing that its government, sir, its government is making decisions that are in their interest, but also in the interest of their children and their grandchildren. And so, sir, I want to say, certainly I obviously support this bill. Because it is just a small part of the puzzle, sir, of the repair job that this Barbados Labour Party government has had to set about doing. And I believe that the process that we are undergoing with respect to the Barbados economic recovery and transformation is certainly well positioned, and that Barbados will be well poised to make sure that we come out of this very dark period of our history from an economic standpoint, that the citizens, as we seek to enhance the growth opportunities and have people involved more in a sense, the building out of a new Barbados economy, that we shall make not just the country more resilient, but we shall make businesses and individuals and households in this country much more economic resilient. Now, sir, as I mentioned earlier, we are in the process of rolling out certainly the reverse tax credits for 2017, and so therefore the Revenue Authority is in the process of dealing with those monies. Similarly, as I mentioned, because we are in the process of making sure that we stay current first, and the settlement of all the arrears, as I mentioned to you in the opening, will be undertaken certainly over the next few months and years, depending on the size of monies that persons are owed by the government. And so the reality is, sir, is that throughout this process, you will recognize that we, not just with the income tax refunds, but certainly with the pensioners that would have been impacted under the debt restructuring with respect to their securities, we have sought during this particular period of time, as you know, sir, when the Prime Minister speaks about if you're setting off on a long journey, that you need to give people breakfast. And I want to reiterate, sir, that breakfast isn't always just one particular snack, because I want to remind through you, sir, the citizens, that we first started on this journey since we are here. We increased certainly the non-contributory pensions, sir, for the most vulnerable people in this country as one of the first orders of business in this Parliament. And we sought to do that against the background that obviously the hardship that was being foisted on those persons, that we knew it was a responsibility of any government that we would wish to be a part of, that we needed to make sure that those at the bottom, sir, had something that they can work with. We certainly wish that we could have given them more. But, sir, we felt that it was important to move those persons from $155 per week to $225 per week to make sure that they can, at least in their old years, have a bit more comfort. We then set about, sir, very quickly as well, to negotiate with the unions that salary increase for public servants. And, sir, that 5% increase, I think, has been well received, sir, well received, to the point, sir, that not just that persons did not expect that there was going to be a salary increase, but we delivered it on time. And certainly, as the public servants will tell you, sir, that over the past couple of days they've received their back pay, sir, their back pay, their back pay, sir. At the same time, as I mentioned, sir, the pensioners that were impacted under the debt restructuring, sir, because we understood what was happening with respect to the cash flow of pensioners, sir, we advanced a solution specifically related to persons 60 years and older holding government securities, sir, where last Friday and into Monday of this week, sir, of last week, sorry, we would have paid out up to $20,000, sir, per pensioner based on the holdings of their debt. And so as we go through this process, sir, we are making sure that persons are taken care of, sir. So when the Barbados Labour Party says that we can put a little money in your pocket, sir, that has been our track record, and that shall continue to be our track record, sir. So when it comes to the reverse tax credit, sir, and those persons, again, sir, another segment of the society for whom obviously the rising cost of living would have had a significant impact. Certainly the return of those reverse tax credits for this year, and certainly as we seek to move forward, sir, to make sure that the amount of monies that we are, as I said, we are putting into the economy, that we are conscious, sir, that the persons who have been most impacted by this very sad state of affairs as far as the economy is concerned, we are making sure, sir, that as we go through this process, that those persons obviously will be taken care of. Now, on top of that, sir, and I want to say it obviously hurts our heart that we've had to send home some people. But I want to say through you, sir, to those persons who have been laid off, as we have agreed, certainly at the social partnership, that 20%, sir, of government's procurement over the next 4 years will be set aside for any person who has been laid off during this retrenchment exercise. And so therefore, in a spirit of independence, sir, I want to implore certainly those persons who have been laid off, do not feel as if you've been left behind. This government has made this opportunity available, which has never been done at any other time in the history of this country. So we, sir, want to encourage those persons not to feel downtrodden. This government is looking out for your interests. So there's been a lot of commentary, sir, about whether or not we care. But we don't just say that we care, sir. We put the mechanism in place to demonstrate how this government cares. Yeah. And so very early in the new year, sir, very early in the new year, as we seek to bring the new procurement legislation to put that particular provision on legal footing, sir, then those persons obviously will be offered opportunities for offering goods and services, which equates to anywhere between $80 to $100 million a year, sir, across government, including statutory corporations. That these are tangible opportunities, sir, that can help start many a small business in this country. And because, sir, and I want to make this point abundantly clear, because we cannot build up any arrears under the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation, any of the persons clearly who have been laid off that chooses to engage in supplying government with any good or any service for what it consumes will be paid, sir, within 30 days of the provision of any good or any service. What that does, sir, is that removes any uncertainty with which any person who have been laid off may feel that if you engage government, that somehow you got to wait months to be paid. And sir, we are very conscious of our responsibility in rebuilding this country. And as I say to you, sir, we are going to change the way that government interfaces with the citizen. And in so doing, sir, we know that the confidence and the trust that we now need to rebuild and repair in this country is what, sir, is going to lead Barbados out of this very dark economic hour. Now, sir, this, amongst all the things that we are doing, it's important that people, in a sense, get up, dust themselves off, and look for the new opportunities that exist. And over the next 4 years, we believe, sir, that if the persons who've been laid off take full advantage of these opportunities, that this affords them the opportunity to not just build businesses in Barbados, but certainly with the training and the modernization effort that the government is also undertaking, that these persons will now feel confident that they can go any part of the world, sir, any part of the world, and help either to modernize other people's systems, but also, sir, to make sure that they too are involved in the normal procurement of any government's good or services any part of the world. And we believe, sir, that out of this situation, we can build Barbadians' mindset about participation in the productive capacity of the nation, and transform the way that people see how the government engages with them. And so, sir, I want to, again, support this resolution because we have a lot more work to do. And in doing that work, we are mindful, sir, that of the responsibility of making sure that those persons who have been most impacted throughout this process, that we take our responsibility seriously, and that as we set about the recovery, we must make sure that those who are the most vulnerable, that they feel, sir, they feel the recovery. And I think we have set about a path that allows those persons to feel in a very tangible way, sir, what the recovery will mean for them. And so, sir, I want to say I fully support this resolution, and I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
Come on. Thank you. The question is that this bill be read a second time. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that the member for Christchurch South be temporarily appointed as the chair of committees.
The question is that the member for Christchurch South be appointed as temporary chairman of committees. All members in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg that you do now leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill.
Second. The question is that I do now leave the chair and that the House goes into committee for the consideration of this bill. All members in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it.
Yeah, thanks, man. Oh.
This committee is now in session.
Mr. Chair, I beg to move that clause 1 stand part.
Question is that clause 1 now stand part. The question is that clause 1 now stand part. All those members in favor say yeah? Aye. All those against say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 2.
Chair, I beg to move that clause 2 stand part.
Question is that clause 2 now stand part. All those members in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 3.
Chair, I beg to move that clause 3 stand part.
Question is that clause 3 now stand part. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those against say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 4.
Chair, I beg to move that clause 4 stand part.
Question is that clause 4 now stand part. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those against say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 5.
Chair, I beg to move that clause 5 stand part.
Question is that clause 5 now stand part. All those in favor say aye. All those against say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 6.
Chair, I beg to move that clause 6 stand part.
Question is that clause 6 now stand part. All those in favor say aye. All those against say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 7.
Chair, I beg to move that clause 7 stand part.
Question is that clause 7 now stand part. All those in favor say aye. All those against say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 8.
Chair, I beg to move that clause 8 stand part.
Question is that clause 8 now stand part. All those in favor say aye. All those against say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chair, I beg to move that we do now report to His Honour the Deputy Speaker the passing of one bill in committee.
Question is that I do now report the passing of the bill to His Honour the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker that is. All those in favor say aye. All those against say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman of committee has reported the passing of the bill in the committee.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be now read a third time.
Seconded. The question is that this bill be read a third time. All members in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be now passed and cited as the Income Tax Amendment and Validation Act 2018.
Thank you. The question is that this bill be now cited, now pass, and cited, and so cited. All members in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Who's doing that?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, order number 5. Order number 5, renaming the Honourable Acting Minister of Finance to move the second reading of the Fuel Tax Bill 2018.
Member for Christchurch Central.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I rise to lay this bill before the House, which is entitled An Act to Provide for the Imposition of a Tax to be known as a Fuel Tax and for Relating Matters 2018. Now, sir, as you are well aware, and I'm sure the Honourable Member for Christchurch West and the Honourable Member for St. Lucie would, in their submissions to this debate, speak to the issues related to road tax. But, sir, we have, in the context of our tax policy, we have sought to make sure that where we introduce tax, sir, that the ease with which we can collect it, with respect to the crisis that we are in, sir, that we needed to make sure that government has relative certainty with respect to taxation. And so a situation would have developed over the years, sir, and I think through necessarily no fault of their own, but certainly, as I mentioned in the previous debate, the relationship of government with the taxpayer, I think, would have diminished significantly over the years. And we certainly saw an opportunity where, in a real sense, we could remove the upfront burden with respect to the payment of road tax, given the way that the economy was going, and sought to recover that piece by piece, sir, through a mechanism that allows people to be able to be compliant with respect to their road tax, but do so in a way that obviously allows them to be able to do so over the course of the year. And in so doing, sir, this particular piece of legislation before the House today, whilst it speaks to a fuel tax, one of our commitments in our manifesto, sir, relates to making it easy for people to do business and to interact with government in this country. And so in that context, sir, as people used to complain about lining up, certainly to pay their road tax, and being frustrated with that process, we saw this certainly as an early opportunity to change that narrative, to change that perspective, whilst at the same time giving the government the benefit of a cash flow, simply because as persons go about their ordinary transit on a daily basis, those transits require fuel, hence the name of the bill. But at the same time, it allows us to be able to plan our way through. And because under the previous administration, sir, persons started to make some decisions about what they will pay and what they wouldn't pay, we felt that it certainly was not appropriate, in a sense, to go and tax people who were already paying in a traditional sense, and not making some attempts, sir, to make sure that where possible, that we were capturing every single piece of activity as it relates to taxation. And so this bill, sir, certainly seeks to put again on legal footing that change that we announced certainly in the budget in June with respect to, one, the abolition of the road tax, but certainly the introduction of this fuel tax as a mechanism in the first instance that allows, again, for citizens to do, in a sense, business with government through the payment of what would have been previously the road tax through the mechanism of fuel at the pump. And sir, we have done so because we want to ensure, sir, that on the one hand, compliance is high. So nobody can avoid the fuel if you have a vehicle, unless you obviously have an electric vehicle. But the reality, sir, is that this is a mechanism through which it allows for the easy collection of this particular tax. And as I said, it is affordable in the sense that for a few nickels and a few dimes, sir, per litre, that it allows certainly the government to be able to plan its way through. And so, sir, as we are importing certainly fuel into the country, we designed this particular policy to make sure that on the one hand, sir, that we do not, and it's important to differentiate, unlike what was in place with the National Social Responsibility Levy that was applied to every single item brought into this country, that we understood how distortionary that was, because when people would have been complaining about the cost of living, that a lot of people certainly weren't aware that the NSRL was also being applied to fuel. And further, that the compounding effect that would have had certainly in terms of the cost of living would have been significant, because it was fuel plus whatever was being transported was also attracting the NSRL. So that's part of the reason, sir, why we had to abolish that in the first instance. But on this one, sir, as we recognize that the compliance was getting worse, sir, it was getting worse, because as you would know, many mornings you will see the police on the road checking to see whether people's road tax and the insurance were up to date. And that had become almost like a common feature. And sir, it did not make sense for something like that to continue, because we don't want traffic to be slowed on the road for the police to check to see whether people having road tax paid, and then you're getting work late because the police checking to see if your road tax is paid, when there was an opportunity for us to do something about that allows citizens to get on with their business, get to work, and go about, in a sense, implementing that recovery that we want to see in the economy. And so this bill, sir, against that broad context, seeks to put the collection of the fuel tax on a legal and firm footing. So, sir, clause 2, the interpretation, and this it speaks to the control of, it's obviously the control of customs, the importer, the petroleum products, and the tax as defined there. And so, sir, this is really just, in a sense, as we all know, sir, the Barbados National Oil Company, in essence, is the sole importer of fuel, whether it is gasoline or diesel, in this country. And so therefore, in this context, obviously, whilst they are the only ones currently, it does not mean that at some point in the future, there may not be somebody else. But the reality, sir, is the importer, and this is where, for all intents and purposes, when fuel is imported into the country, and the various distributors go to remove fuel from the terminal, it is at that point, sir, that the tax is paid. So the customs would process to determine how much fuel has left the fuel tanks in terms of the warehousing element of it, sir. And it's at that point the tax is paid. Now, sir, this obviously makes it easier, because obviously we don't want to be running down all the gas stations across the country, because that would create another, not nightmare, but it would certainly mean more work with respect to the administration of the tax. And so therefore, in this instance, we are dealing certainly with one entity who controls the importation of these fuels. And so therefore, when we speak about efficiency, then it means that the Revenue Authority is dealing with one entity with respect to the taxation. As you know, sir, the tax is fixed per litre, and that is carried through to the consumer at the pump. And any variation, sir, in the fuel price at this point is not the fuel tax. It is really the international price of oil that creates the variation with respect to whether prices go up or go down. And so I just want to make that clear, sir, that whilst, yes, fuel prices have gone up because we've imposed the fuel tax, the variations that you're seeing now are related to international oil price movement, which has been on the rise for some time. And given the geopolitics of what's taking place, we anticipate that there may be further rises in that, which is all the more reason why, sir, as we seek to embark on our target to be the first fossil fuel-free country by 2030, that Barbadians now seek to transition and to cleaner fuels on the one hand, but certainly alternatives for powering not just cars, but certainly the rest of the industrial plant in this country. But it is in that certainly in that frame that obviously, whilst the government's objective is to reach there, part of getting there, sir, means that as we are in this particular juncture, that this fuel tax was introduced obviously to be able to ease the way through this adjustment period. So, sir, at 3, it speaks to the imposition of the tax. And it says, subject to this act, there shall be a charge on petroleum products, a tax to be known as a fuel tax. 2, the tax referred to in subsection 1 should be charged at the point of importation of the petroleum products at the rates specified in the schedule. 3, the minister may by order amend the schedule. And an order made under subsection 3 is subject to negative resolution. 4 speaks to the payment of the tax, which, as I mentioned, sir, every importer shall, upon the removal of petroleum products from a warehouse, pay to the controller of customs the tax specified in section 3. Section 5 speaks to penalty and interest, and it says at 5.1, an importer who fails to pay the tax in accordance with section 4 shall pay to the controller, in addition to the tax, a penalty equal to 10% of the amount that was not paid. 2, an importer shall pay to the controller, in addition to the penalty imposed under subsection 1, interest at a rate of 1% per month on the amount that was not paid. Now, sir, even though we were, and I must inform the House that when this tax was first introduced, and sir, I say this to you, to the country, sir, through you, because when I mentioned in the previous debate about government ensuring that it collects revenue, when we first imposed this levy, there was a whole set of issues related to BNOC. And we found out, sir, quite belatedly, that for whatever reason, BNOC and their entries with respect to the clearance of fuel, that there was some lag, sir, with respect to when the entries were cleared in the Asecuda system and when government was being paid. So we realized that obviously, having abolished the National Social Responsibility Levy, that there was a set of money that was due to be paid to the government that hadn't been paid because the entries weren't cleared within the Asecuda system. Now, why am I spending time on this, sir? When I indicated to you, sir, that we are tracking how much revenue we're supposed to get on a daily basis, and how much money we're spending on a daily basis, sir, in the context of the management of our public finances right now, and certainly I would like to think that going forward, that will continue for a long while. The reality is that if you are not actually collecting the revenue, sir, that's due to government, it means, and you continue to spend as if you are normal, then it essentially means that you have a financing gap, which would have meant, sir, that you would end up going into the overdraft or to the central bank to give you a little top up, because you haven't taken the time, sir, to make sure you actually collect the revenue that you're supposed to get, so that even if you have to go into the overdraft facility, you're going in for a relatively small amount rather than for a habitual top up as far as your operational government. And so, sir, we had to deal with that because obviously, as we were going through the summer period, we needed to be absolutely clear about what monies were due and owing to the government, and that we had expended every opportunity to collect said revenues. And so therefore, sir, we have sought to make sure that we bring into line all of the revenue points for government, look at the procedures that they were undergoing with respect to the collection of said revenues, and said, look, we need to change this simply because having imposed new measures with respect to tax, you had to make sure that the revenue performance for said tax were effective, because you've done everything that you could do to make sure that the collection process was more efficient. And so we had to deal with that, sir. But I say that to say that when I look at how the previous administration would have been managing things, that it is clear, that particular instance demonstrated to me that it was clear that the lag in time for which that particular entity was waiting to pay government, that I could understand why you will find yourself in trouble. Because if nobody is checking, sir, to make sure that the revenue that you're supposed to collect has actually been collected, but you continue to spend because it's easy to spend. I know my colleagues will wish to challenge that, but the reality, sir, is that you can spend, but you got to make sure you know how you're going to get paid. And I think that we have done a reasonable job, sir, to make sure that at this particular point in time, that we know exactly where every piece of change is going to come from, such that when the government goes about its business, sir, that we know in the Ministry of Finance how it's going to be paid for. That's what the people elected us. And, sir, so as we go through the next few years, I can say to the country through you, sir, that we are seeking to make sure that our revenue points, sir, are as efficient and effective as possible. If we can get things done as close to real time as possible, that's where we're seeking to go. Because we understand, sir, that once we make it easier for citizens or businesses to actually transact said business, then it means the cost of government actually collecting revenue will come down. It means that the lag between when the transaction took place and when the money actually hits the treasury account will be minimized, and therefore we will be in a position to make definitive decisions about how we are going to finance government's program of expenditures. And it is this, sir, is the first example of how we've sought to close some of those operational issues. And in a sense, it really means that as part of the modernization of government, that this is perhaps one of those early unseen, unfelt things that we have done, because we have been able, certainly, sir, over the course of the summer and whilst things were tight, to make sure that the monies that were supposed to come in have actually come in, and that right now we are up to date with respect to where those fuel revenues are. Now, sir, at 6 it speaks to the inspections. And it says, an officer of the Customs and Excise Department duly authorized by the controller shall at least once every month enter any warehouse used for the storage of petroleum products and undertake an inspection audit of the warehouse to verify A, the inventory of petroleum products in the warehouse, and B, the removal of petroleum products from the warehouse. Just so you're aware, sir, there's actually a petroleum officer. I think that's the name of the actual officer, petroleum officer, whose responsibility it is to manage that process in terms of the clearance. And then at 2 it says, a person who impedes, prevents or obstructs an officer of the Customs and Excise Department in the execution of his duties under this Act is guilty of an offense and is liable to summary conviction to a fine of $20,000. At 7, sir, it speaks to the waiver or refund of tax. And it says the minister may, where he is satisfied that it is just and equitable to do so, waive or refund in whole or in part any tax, penalty, or interest payable under this Act. And at 8, it speaks to the tax collected pursuant to this Act shall be paid into the consolidated fund. And so, having expressed to you earlier, sir, what were some of the procedural issues that were being faced with respect to the BNOC and in a sense, the failure to pay those sums over, we have since corrected that, and that fuel tax is actually now as up to date as it can be. At 9, it speaks to the minister may make regulations generally for the purpose of giving effect to this act, and 10 speaks to the validation as it relates to the Provision of Collection of Taxes Act, and it says notwithstanding sections 3.2 and 5 of the Provisional Collection of Taxes Act, Cap 85, all tax purportedly paid to and collected by the controller with effect from 1st of July 2018 shall be deemed to have been lawfully and validly paid and collected. And at the schedule, sir, the schedule just speaks to the tariff heading and the description of the goods that obviously the taxes are being applied. And as we know, sir, we introduced this tax with effect from the 1st of July, and 40 cents per litre, sir, for what it says here, motor spirit or gasoline as known to the regular public. Diesel oil for use as fuel for road motor vehicles, also 40 cents per litre. 5 cents per litre, sir, with respect to what is called illuminating kerosene, normal kerosene oil, sir, for lamps and stoves and those things that persons would normally use kerosene for. So you have, as I said, 40 cents per litre for gasoline and diesel used for motor vehicles, and 5 cents per litre for illuminating kerosene. And it's important to indicate here, sir, that the tax is not in any way applied to any of the fuel used, one, in the production of electricity, or two, any of the fuel that is used with respect to the airline industry, which obviously is because of the international arrangements, are exempt from said taxes. And so this bill, sir, has been introduced again, as I said, to bring some to the collection of that tax, to make it lawfully so. I think that Barbadians, whilst they visually see the increase in fuel at the pump, the reality is that you don't have to face that dreaded horror of finding that lump sum in terms of the road tax every year. And so therefore it allows for a level of compliance within the tax system that we believe obviously makes sense in the 21st century. And so this is really, sir, an innovation, if you like. And I think that as we move forward, sir, with many of the programs that we seek to introduce across government, that at the heart of it really, sir, is to make sure that the ease one with which people will interact with government, that is obviously first and foremost in our minds, and that this particular initiative, as we see here, is really to allow also for the government to be able to plan with respect to the revenue collection under this bill. And so, sir, this is but just one of the measures that, again, seeks to provide a little more certainty under the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan. And we spoke about it, sir, on the campaign trail. We delivered it, certainly, in government. And I believe that over the last 6 months, sir, that having done most of what we said we will do, that the people will now recognize that it has a government that is working, sir, working to make sure that we set right this situation that somehow has gotten away from us in the last few years. And there are some things that are going to be quite innovative. There are some things that will just mean that we need to do a little touch-up here and there, sir. But the reality is that we are on course, sir, to do for Barbadians that which perhaps hasn't been done for them for some time. And we are mindful, sir, that throughout this process, we have to continue, sir, to explain to people that there's a need to change the way that we have done things in the past. And this is an example, sir. This is an example of changing the way that citizens were interacting with government. It changes the cost structure with respect to the collection of that particular tax. And certainly from the Ministry of Finance's perspective, sir, we intend to make sure that we lower the cost, sir, of the government's ability to collect revenue, such that we can redeploy the resources that were currently made available for the collection of revenue, redeploy those resources to other areas where the actual delivery of the public service, where it is critically needed. And we believe, sir, that that is one of the understated parts of this Barbados Economic and Recovery Transformation, because as we modernize, part of the modernization, sir, is to make sure that our ability and the cost associated with us collecting revenue, the time that is spent for people lining up and doing all of these things, sir, it is a cost. It is a cost to the country, and we believe that people's time, sir, is very valuable to them, and that they should be able to spend their time doing that which is much more productive than standing in line to pay government some money. And as we seek to modernize those payment methods, we are going to continue to engage people to try to get them to appreciate that we have to move away from what has become familiar and do something different, such that their time is better spent, sir, doing things that are much more productive, such that the growth that we would like to see, such that the value added that we would like to see will be achieved, because people are actually spending their time doing things other than lining up to pay government. And so I believe, sir, that this fuel tax measure represents the first example of how people now do not have to line up to pay road tax, but it is a much more efficient way for government to collect that revenue. And in so doing, we have been able, sir, to, in a sense, lower the cost with respect to the collection of that particular tax. And so long as we continue, sir, along that vein, then I know that we then will be able to say to the citizen that the value for money that they expect with respect to their expenditures under various government programs, that once we are committed, sir, to seeing that through the entire government service, then I think we would have done not just the citizen proud, but within the context of the public service, I think we'd be able to deliver better services to the public. And so I want to say that obviously, sir, I support this bill, and this is one of many that will obviously come from the ministry with respect to not just this early stabilization effort for the program, but as we move to the next phase, sir, of transformation. Because what you've seen so far, some have been, of the bills have been transformational, but at their core, sir, the bills that have been brought to this chamber were designed specifically to deliver a level of economic stability that Barbadians had not seen for some time. And so, sir, I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
Member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to put a few remarks on this bill. Of course, the member for Christchurch East Central said that he expected me to make a contribution, so therefore I felt that I had a certain duty and responsibility, therefore then to come and make a short contribution on this matter. But of course, first I looked into my King James Version to see if I could find fuel tax or road tax in that King James Version. I did find the words fuel and the words tax, but not together and not synonymous with the type of tax that we are accustomed or debating. So unfortunately this is the first presentation that I'll be making that I will not have that Bible verse to relate to. I'm hearing render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and render unto God what is God's, but I've used that one already. So I didn't want to fall back on one that I had used. Although my mind did cast back to the concept of the ladies with the oil in the lamp. And it was a correlation, but not exactly the same as a fuel tax and road tax. But anyways, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I don't want to detain the House for very long. Just to say that the fuel tax, which replaced the old road tax, is a fair tax in some senses, and then it is not perfect in other senses. And I'll explain both. It is fair that people are paying for what they use. And I give an example, and I think of my mother when I give this example. A retired person who uses her car, go to church, which is a mile away, go to the supermarket, 3 miles away, and that's it. So once, twice a week to church, once a week to the supermarket, and that's all she uses her car for. Hardly anything else apart from that. And she would pay X amount. And then you have, in comparison, a salesman who goes location to location to location to location every single day, 5 days a week. And he pays the same amount. Now clearly that system was not appropriate, because people should pay for what they use. The damage incurred to the roads, the damage incurred to the environment, the quantum of gas burnt. So people were paying the same road tax, but using the facilities in different ways. So I would argue, and I argued on the platform, that it is a fairer system and a better system because you pay for what you use. It reminds me of when I was the chairman of the National Petroleum Corporation. We had, and I'm not going to use his name disparagingly, a man by the name of Mr. Linton, who was the general manager at the time. And I always remember Mr. Linton, because Mr. Linton would say, when you buy a bottle of LPG gas, you pay for what you get. You don't know how much you get. You don't know if you get a full bottle, a half bottle, a three-quarter bottle. But when you buy natural gas, which is metered, you're paying for what you use. And that always stuck with me, because at the end of the day, the fairer thing is to pay for what you use. But that is the fairness of it. The unfairness part that the member for Christchurch East Central didn't allude to, and I have to allude to it because people address me on it and I understand, is the agricultural machinery that doesn't go on the road. They're still paying the fuel tax. They didn't pay a road tax because they weren't on the road, but now they're being taxed. The people that buy diesel to run their boats, they weren't paying a road tax before. They don't get to the road, but now they're paying a tax on their fuel. The people that do lawn care and have to refuel their weed whacker and their lawn mower and all these sorts of things, they're paying the tax, who otherwise they weren't paying the tax because they don't go on the road and they're not that kind of equipment. But it goes, even although it is not a perfect tax, we understand that the tax is important because we had 10,000 people not paying road tax at all. 10,000. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, you used to be a Minister of Transport and Works. You know from then, it isn't something new. For years, they had thousands of people who were not paying their road tax. So if it meant that a few people are going to be caught in the loop, so that those 10,000 that were trying to get away, well then so be it. Because it's not perfect, but it's the best that the government could come up with, so that we get the most compliance that we can. Half the fellas that you see riding about the scramblers and wheeling on the highway, they weren't paying the road tax, but now if they put in fuel in that vehicle, they got to be contributing to the tax. Because many hands make light work, and we all got to carry the burden of getting this country back to where it should be. So everybody has to contribute. I'm hearing you. So this is why I understand that there are some people who complain because the construction industry, for instance, the person with the bobcat and the backhoe and so on, whose vehicles do not go on the road, they are now contributing to the tax. But everybody got to contribute. And let me go further. This is why we put in place, because we recognize that people who weren't paying the road tax, then can decide, well, they ain't got to pay the insurance. But we're putting measures in place to compel people to pay their insurance. And I'll give you an example. I said it before, but it bears repeating. There were people in this country who had come to the decision that if I don't pay my insurance, I am going to make a saving. I'll give you an example. If you were caught without paying your insurance, the fine was $500. But the insurance paid was $1,100 for argument's sake, depending on the size of the vehicle and your no claims bonus and so on and so forth. So people made the decision, if I don't pay my insurance for 2, 3, or 4 years, that is a saving of $3,000 or $4,000. And if I got caught at any time, I only had to pay a fine of $500. So therefore people made the decision, it's better to take the chance, not pay insurance, drive boat without insurance, and if they got caught, it was only $500 fine. Well, I said it can't work. So we brought the amendment and changed from the $500 to the $5,000. So you go and not pay your insurance now. Well, when you get caught by the police, it's going to be 5 times what you were saving. And I would encourage and I would suggest that people are not any longer going to be taking that chance. And I thought so. But just yesterday, we had a town hall meeting to discuss the road traffic amendments. And I would encourage people to come. The next one is December 3rd, 6:30 at Springer Memorial School. And at that meeting, a member from the insurance sector made it clear that even though we had changed the legislation, even though there's such a stiff penalty on people who do not pay the insurance, he said and made it clear at that meeting, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that in every 10 accidents that come to him, one person does still not have either a driver's license or insurance. And I'm urging and begging the people of Barbados, it is so important to pay your insurance. Do not run the risk of getting a $5,000 fine in front of the law courts. Don't run the risk of getting injured or injuring somebody else on the roadway, and then that person not being able to benefit from the best of medical treatment because you didn't pay your insurance. It is just ridiculous. And the people of Barbados have to step up. Driving on the roads is not a right, it is a privilege. And comes with that privilege the responsibility and the necessity to make sure your insurance is absolutely up to date. Because you're not only putting yourself at risk, you're putting so many other road users at risk as well. Their lives and their futures. And I am appealing to the people of Barbados because I was appalled. I was appalled and surprised and disappointed that he could say even after all of our efforts, 1 in 10 people are still being found after an accident do not have insurance. And I heard the minister as well speak about making things simple. And we've been bombarded by the public that the stickers that was instituted should be issued by the insurance companies and they shouldn't have to come to the ministry to get them and so on. And we hear you and we understand, but it is a process that we have to go through. This process of going to the ministry is phase 1. But as we get the various software and data collection measures in place, and I see the minister and the member of parliament for Christchurch East Central nodding his head because he knows that we have to work together to get certain processes in place. And once we get those processes in place, and once we get the data handshaking and shared amongst all the various entities, we will be able to get to a process that you don't actually have to come there. But it isn't there yet, but we're working towards it. So give us a chance. Let us continue to work to make things better for us. And let us also understand that part of this government's initiative is to make Barbados fuel-free, fossil-free by 2030. And I heard the minister talk about the whole concept of using other fuels. And I want to make it clear because he spoke about the electric vehicles. And you know, through this fuel tax, the electric vehicles are getting away because they're not paying any tax at all because they do not access the fuels, be it gasoline or diesel or whatever it is. So they actually are now paying what would have been the equivalent of no road tax. And we understand that. And that's an incentive to change over. But there's another incentive, because I can tell you in Trinidad, there are 3,000 compressed natural gas vehicles. And if you use compressed natural gas, which is also a cleaner fuel, it is much easier to transform your car to compressed natural gas. I understand a kit is only $400, $500 or something like that. But the savings, you're going to save because you're not paying fuel tax. So Minister Strawn will not be seeing that money if you change to the compressed natural gas. But it will be a cleaner, it is a cleaner fuel. It is a cleaner fuel, the first thing. And it is also cheaper. We made an assessment, Mr. Deputy Speaker, of the cost of natural gas versus electricity versus diesel. 11 cents per kilometer for natural gas, 22 cents per kilometer for electricity, and 33 cents per kilometer for diesel. So you would be cutting down a third of your costs. And you got to remember, you're not only cutting down a third of your costs, natural gas is produced right here in Barbados. So you're not expending foreign exchange either. Unlike the electric vehicle or the diesel and gasoline. Electric vehicles, diesel and gasoline, imported from overseas. Electricity, all from burning diesel at the electric plant, some from photovoltaic, true, but the majority from there. Foreign exchange again. But natural gas, we have it here. So I am endeavoring to change my car over to CNG as soon as I can, to reduce the amount of cost for my traveling, and to reduce any of that excess money going into the minister from Christchurch East Central's coffers, so that I can contribute to and reduce the footprint that I am producing here in Barbados. And I encourage more people to look at the idea of changing over. I understand there's a B bus that was imported that actually uses compressed natural gas. And I encourage more people to look at that. I'm hearing you. So there's lots to discuss in this fuel tax. There's a lot to discuss from the energy point of view. Mr. Speaker, you know, I'll give you an example of just how efficiently this government is running. Something that didn't even register as a blip on the average person in Barbados' radar. A few months ago, Petrotrin in Trinidad closed down. Closed down. For those of us in the energy industry, I used to be in the energy industry in my previous life as a chairman of the Natural Petroleum Corporation, and I enjoyed the 5 years thoroughly. And I must tell you, for those of us who understood what that meant, it was alarm bells. Because Petrotrin receives the oil that we produce here in Barbados, 1,000 barrels a day, refined it, used to refine it and send it back, and on top, they sent back to us all the diesel and all the gasoline that we used in Barbados. It could have been a major problem. But nobody saw any scarcity of diesel or gas. Nobody saw anything at all that happened, apart from hearing that Petrotrin had closed down. Because this government was working. And I want to commend the member for Christchurch East. And I I don't want the House to think that there's a Christchurch thing between Christchurch West Central, Christchurch West, and Christchurch East. Well, I'm being reminded of my leadership role amongst the Christchurch members. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, nobody in Barbados felt anything after that happened, because this government worked quickly to be able to resolve the matter and find a new distributor and get things sorted out and get a contract in place to the point that nobody felt anything whatsoever. Because, you know what? To govern is to anticipate. And we anticipated the problem, and we recognized what the problem was. We sought the solution, and we fixed the problem for the people of Barbados without any disruption whatsoever. And that is what we are trying to do, not only with the fuel tax, not only with Petrotrin shutting down, but with every single thing we put our minds to. When it comes to the South Coast Sewage Project, we're trying to fix it. When it comes to the garbage, we're trying to fix it. The buses, we're trying to fix it. All of those mission critical things we work on every single day and many, many nights. Many, many nights. Because we have been elected to do a job. And we're going to do that job to the best of our ability every single day. And I want the people of Barbados to rest assured and go about the business and understand the same way that we were able to minimize the issues of Petrotrin, of which you didn't feel anything, we are working to minimize all of the problems that we've faced. Yes, we're going to have some difficulties. Yes, we're going to have some hiccups. Yes, everything that we do is not going to be perfect. But the Prime Minister says this, and I tell everybody this all the time. The greatest impediment to progress is perfection. So it isn't every time that we're going to have perfection, but it's every time we're going to seek to get progress. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm obliged.
Member for
Thank you, Mr. Deputy
West.
Speaker. Just a moment or two. Let me begin by saying that I can't share the view of my honourable friend, former constituent. I've got to check to see if he's changed his voting registration. The member, or my constituent, the honourable member from Christchurch East Central. I can't share the view that the charges, additional charges put on fuel as replacement for road tax in June constitute a nickel and dime matter. I think it's unfortunate that he put it that way, and I really don't think he meant to convey that view, but I would be happy if he would retract that, because it's really not a nickel and dime matter. If you pass on Broad Street, as I sometimes do, top of Broad Street, middle of Broad Street, Mr. Deputy Speaker, those who are involved in the business of commercial transport in Barbados will tell you that this is not a nickel and dime matter, that they view this rather seriously. In fact, many of them are upset over these charges attaching to fuel. Now, if you go to any of the terminals, you will hear the same sound and the same cry. Now, this is painful for those who are involved in commercial transport in Barbados. And I'm not even going to spend time this afternoon referring to those who use their transportation, their vehicles, for private matters, because there's some inconvenience for them as well, some increases for them as well. But I am not going to dwell on that here this afternoon. But I wanted to suggest to the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central that he not for the future characterize this matter in those terms, because many of those people don't see this as a simple nickel and dime issue. If you look at the records, Mr. Speaker, in the mini-budget presentation of June, you would see, in fact, that the Minister of Finance admits that as you replace the road tax and you introduce this 40-cent charge per liter on fuel, etc., government is raking in $20 million plus beyond what they did.
On a point of order.
Point of order. I wouldn't want the wrong numbers to go into Hansard. And the honourable member said 40 cents. But in actual fact, it is not 40 cents. Because remember, the NSRL part of, I believe it was 16 or 17 cents. So the actual fuel tax component per litre is 23 cents. So I would just want that the honourable member put the right number. You know I'm a numbers man. As he said quite clearly, and the right number would be 23 cents, I believe, and not 40 cents on the fuel tax per litre.
Usually I will always stand corrected when those who seek to correct me are themselves correct. And I'm not too sure that this is the case. According to the Prime Minister's presentation, the presentation of our Minister of Finance, the NSRL represented not 16 or 17 cents, but 12 cents. I would suggest the Honourable Member for Christchurch West check that. And the Minister of Finance at the time was therefore asserting this view, since you had an NSRL applying at 12 cents, the 40 cents in effect became netted at 28 cents. But the fact of the matter is, this administration has removed that NSRL, but at 40 cents additional per litre still applies at the fuel pump. Mr. Deputy Speaker, you know that. Mr. Deputy Speaker, you know that. You drive all around this country at all types of hours, visiting all types of places. And therefore,
that is true.
And therefore,
that is true.
You know,
I'm all
you
over.
have to pay at the pump. All right. So it's not really a nickel and dime, but government is getting a lot of revenue out of this measure. What I'm not clear about, and what it seems to me government itself might not be clear about, is the aim of this thing. Is it to spare people the burden of a lump sum payment of $400 or $1,600 one-time payment annually, as the case may be? Or is it an attempt to have a greater certainty with respect to compliance and collections? Or maybe it is both. Whatever it is both, let's admit that it is both. Government wants to give an ease, and so attempts a measure effectively to realize that ease. But government also wants to collect some additional revenue. That is why any additional charge as stipulated under those measures, fuel tax increase, as presented in June, do not only relate to vehicles that run on our roads, but kerosene stoves. I have an honourable colleague or friend in the other place who reminded us that he has never seen, and I have never seen, a kerosene stove coming down the highway. But there's an increase on that fuel, poor man's fuel, so to speak. So it is not a nickel and dime thing. It is a potent way of government creating certainty in its collection of revenue and ensuring a greater degree of compliance while attempting to give an ease. But Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is a business tax. This is a business tax. And let's be clear about that. And the Honourable Member for Christchurch West clearly understands that. Because this fuel charge, as he pointed out, applies to boating, applies to agriculture, and we don't see those types of vehicles on the road. And so there are people captured in this net. who we cannot rightly say are persons obligated to pay road tax annually. But it is a business tax, and that is, in my view, the concern here. It is a small business. It is a charge that is applying to small businesses. The business of transportation in Barbados, which, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I strongly believe is an avenue for really enfranchising working class people who are interested in investing and getting into lucrative business in Barbados. Commercial transportation can afford that opportunity. And as has been said to me, the way the system operates is that though many of these vehicles providing commercial transport in the private sector of public commuters, though many of these vehicles on our roads are actually owned by persons of some means, the way the system operates is that the actual operators on the road are given the opportunity by these owners to generate revenue for themselves, and it is out of that generated revenue that these fuel charges will come, and not necessarily out of the owner's pockets. So this is a charge or a tax that is attaching itself to the pockets of small working class people who are seeking to bring themselves a little bit further up the economic ladder. We must be reminded that they are operating in a context where they are constrained by a fee system and by a fare system, F-A-R-E. Mr. Deputy Speaker, lest I be misunderstood, a fee system and a fare system. And they're constrained by that. You were Minister of Transport, so you understand when I talk about fare system, I am sure. Absolutely.
Yes, I understand.
And so they're constrained, Mr. Deputy Speaker, by a fee system and a fare system, and it is into that context that this charge is applied. Now, I have heard it said in here before, the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central repeated it, that this was put abroad during the election campaign from the platform of the now government. It may have been put forward that you were going to replace the road tax with a fuel charge, but I don't recall ever hearing it put forward what the volume of that increased charge would have been. Some may have concluded that it may have been a 5 cents or an 8 cents or 10 cents rather than a 40 cents. And so there's a big difference.
On a point of order?
Again, the Honourable Member is Mr. Sidney House. He goes back to the 40 cents after elucidating in his speech that it is 27 cents. And I do not want it to go into the record that it is a 40 cents per litre on the fuel tax. It is not. It is 27 cents. And I would ask that he withdraw the 40 cents and go back to 27 cents, which he himself said.
All right. Member.
So, Deputy Speaker, I pointed out what I thought to be the calculations of the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, but I never myself subscribed to those calculations. And if you ask the man at the top of Broad Street, like I said, or in any of our terminals, he will tell you it's 40 cents he's feeling. It is 40 cents he's feeling. That is the measure of the pain he's feeling. So you can try to enlighten those out there who feel like they're paying the additional 40 cents, as is stated in the document presented to us.
Speaker, on point of order. It is not what the honourable man is feeling, it is the fact. The honourable man, any man could feel that the moon is made of cheese, but it is not. It is not. We know the moon is not made of cheese, and we know because we have calculated and worked out that it is 27 cents. And I do not want it to go into the record, this concept of 40 cents, because it is not. We work too hard and too much at pains to get it down to that, and that is what must go into the record.
Enlightenment comes to me rather slowly on many things. But my clear,
recognize that?
yes, but my clear understanding is that you're putting a 40 cents additional on the charge of fuel at the pump. However, since we will remove a 12 cents NSRL in effect, you're only paying 28 cents. That is my understanding. Now, you can interpret that how you want, Mr. Speaker. Obviously, the member for Christchurch West has his own interpretation, but the Broad Street interpretation, the bus terminal interpretation, is that we're paying 40 cents. Mr. Deputy Speaker.
On a point of order again, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the honourable member continues to mislead the House, and the reason that the people in Broad Street and the terminals feel they're paying 40 cents is because people like us get out there and put out this 40 cents idea. And this is why I am not going to let that go through. Because the people of Barbados will feel 40 cents if people in here are saying 40 cents. But if the people in here tell the truth that it's 27 cents, and the people of Barbados understand it's 27 cents, then they would not feel that they're paying 40 cents, which is not true. It is 27 cents.
Well, remember, before it's difficult for me to ascertain if it's 40 cents or 28 cents, but it says interpretation. So it is difficult for me to rule if.
It's not interpretation.
But the member is saying it's his interpretation that is 40 cents. Let's continue.
Mr. Speaker, to be clear, I am saying to you that I understand the honourable member for Christchurch West to be saying it's 28 cents. I do not subscribe. I did not, in my earlier part of my submission, I did not subscribe to that view. All I said was, and I'm repeating it, the Broad Street view, the bus terminal view, is that it is 40 cents, and every time he stands on his feet, his honourable feet, to object, he allows me the opportunity to repeat the Broad Street and bus terminal view. That is 40 cents.
But from where did you get that 40 cents?
And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker,
Mr. Deputy Speaker, on a point of order again. The honourable member is not only now misleading the House, but he's misleading the nation. Misleading the nation. The people of Barbados have had the NSRL removed. With that removal, it meant that what you're paying in fuel tax is now 27 cents. He's rounding it off to 28, it's 27 point something something. So it must go forward in this House, the greatest legislative and the greatest committee of this country, because we cannot continue to mislead the people of Barbados. That's the last administration, not this one. This administration is about truth and accuracy. And the accuracy is that the people of Barbados are paying 27 point whatever cents, not 40 cents. It don't matter what the interpretation is. The fact is, it is 27 cents.
Mr. Deputy,
Go forward, not today.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I will desist from my reference to the Broad Street view and the bus terminal view at this point. I will desist from that at this point in the interest of time, and I will be guided by the honourable member for Christchurch West, who is insisting that the government remove 12 cents as NSRL because it was burdensome, and then impose 28 cents as a way of granting a concession. So now I do not know what kind of reverse reasoning that is. How do you tell a man, I'm taking off 12 cents because it is burdensome, but I'm putting 27 plus cents on you in an effort to give you an ease?
Your member is continuing to mislead the House because he's forgetting the part that there is no more road tax. So it's not that there was an imposition of 27 cents, but concomitant with that, there was the abolishing of the road tax. And for the honourable member to come and suggest that it was an imposition of 27 cents, which I'm happy that he has accepted, but yet still not also inform the public that there's an abolition of additional tax, is continuing to mislead the House, and this is why the Broad Street and the terminal people get confused. And we cannot allow that to go forward, and I will not allow it to go forward.
And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker,
Go ahead.
I would simply want the record to show that I did not accept the view of the honourable member. I said I will be guided by that view and desist at this time from that Broad Street and bus terminal view. That's all I said. Having, of course...
So you're moving on. You're moving on now.
Yeah, moving on, because he's brought us to this business of concession with respect to road tax. And he's suggesting very sincerely that we must take that on board, because the burden of having removed 12 cents to give an ease and impose, to remove a burden by lifting the 12 cents, to give an ease by then imposing 27 plus cents, must also be understood in a context where there was an ease of road. Mr. Speaker, the guys on Broad Street and in the bus terminal, and if the figures are wrong, the honourable member for Christchurch West would correct me. A guy who drives a B vehicle, a minibus, under these current arrangements, is spending $14,000 more annually. I stand to be corrected, because I understand the people from Broad Street and bus terminal all often get it wrong. So I stand to be corrected. I can tell you what I hear, Mr. Deputy Speaker. So if I operate a minibus, under these new arrangements that are expected to ease my situation, I'm paying $14,000 more. That includes the reduction in road tax. That is after the reduction in road tax.
On the point of order? Yeah, go ahead.
First, let me say that the
What's the point of order?
APTO and the other association, I can't remember the name, made a presentation to me and to the Prime Minister and so on, and they actually showed their increases. And I will not argue that they have had increases, and the increases are due because they've used the road more than the average person, so they do have increases, but they were nowhere near the magnitude of $40,000. The increase was nowhere near the magnitude of $40,000. You said 14? Sorry, nowhere near the magnitude of $14,000. It was an increase, and the presentation that I saw, I believe that it varied depending on which particular size bus. It did vary, not only the route, which particular size bus and how they operated. But the range was, I think it was half of that. I don't think it was as much as that, as far as I remember.
Thank you for the explanation. Remember.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, a guy who is operating not a B bus, but a ZR, after you take into consideration the waiving of the road tax, is spending over $8,000 more annually. The guy who is operating a ZM is spending, after you calculate, you factor in the waiver of the road tax, over $5,000 more. Now, if these numbers are wrong, I will come back here and publicly apologize to the Minister of Public Works. But I interact with people out there. I try to get a sense of people's pain, and all I seek to do here is to reflect that pain. So the government is very well aware of how the public is feeling in relation to the policy initiatives that they implement. So let me conclude, and this would be of great interest, I'm sure, to the Honourable Member for Christchurch West I remember in June, or certainly sometime earlier this year, in this very house, I said that there were growing fears in the public arena in Barbados, that there were growing fears being voiced by people with respect to layoffs, pending anticipated layoffs. I was castigated by a couple honorable members on the other side. That has come to pass and is likely to worsen. I remember raising my voice to suggest, especially to the honorable minister responsible for public works, that there were growing concerns being voiced that there would be a soon increase in bus fares in Barbados. To his credit, the honorable member for Christchurch West sat in silence and said nothing. But one or two other voices in this chamber castigated me. I say again, those voices are being raised in anticipation and with some fear, trepidation, that we will increase bus fares. I would want to ask, since the honorable member for Christchurch West is in such an energetic frame of mind and is so intellectually stimulated this afternoon, that he would tell us when next year are we going to increase bus fares in Barbados.
You have completed your speech. Member for Christchurch East.
Honourable Mr. Deputy Speaker, I guarantee you this will be my shortest intervention in this honourable chamber. I raise to support the presentation of my good friend from Christchurch East Central. And I hear and I have heard the contribution from the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, and I've also heard the contribution from the Honourable Member for Christchurch West. And I will say this, Mr. Speaker, we are doing what we have to do. Barbados knew that the economy was not in a good position. We knew things were bad. Those of us who were in the opposition at the time, we knew things were bad. And every week we had a meeting and we discussed the plan. If the election was to be called now and we got in 21 days, what would we do in the first month, in the first 2 months, in the first 3 months? To rescue the country and to save the dollar. We kept applying our minds to, if the worst case scenario happened, what would we do to get Barbados back on track as fast as possible? Well, Mr. Speaker, I won't say that the worst case happened. I would say that what happened was even worse than the worst case. Because we knew it was going to be bad. But not one of us in here contemplated it was going to be as bad as what it was we found when we got into government. So, Mr. Speaker, let's not pretend. I'm not pretending. I don't like paying taxes. I don't think anybody likes paying taxes. I don't like to dip into my pocket and pull out something that is not going immediately to help somebody else, or to purchase something for myself or my wife, or support my family or friends. I don't think anybody in the world likes paying taxes. There was a saying that it was the duty of a government to tax and the duty of the citizen to pay as few taxes as possible. So you're going to get no complaint from anybody that we don't want to pay a tax. I don't want to pay this fuel tax, but I would rather pay this fuel tax and get my roads fixed. So the Honourable Member for Christchurch West started with a bang. People complain about the traffic. We ain't going to complain about everything that inconveniences us. That's the reality. We complain about traffic, but we have a brand new spanking stretch of highway. We can see where the money is going. The member has started as well paving roads in St. Lucie. I understand they're getting to Christchurch shortly, but within the next year, we are going to see more roads paved than we have seen for the last 10 years. So none of us want to pay this fuel levy, this fuel tax, but it is necessary. I don't want to pay the garbage and sewage contribution levy, but it is necessary. I would rather pay that levy and actually get the garbage trucks, and I understand the garbage trucks are on their way. We know as a fact, this is not speculation up in the air. The garbage trucks are now in United States of America being switched, I think, from left hand to right hand or something, but something to bring them here to Barbados. And we know that they have been purchased. The receipt is there. We can trace the payment of money. This is not a pie in the sky dream. So I would rather pay the GSC and get my garbage collected and get my road debushed. I would rather pay the GSC and have the sewage lines in Bridgetown and on the South Coast maintained as they were not maintained for the last 10 years. So whether it is 40 cents, 27 cents, $45 a month, we as a government then come in saying we want to jump down in the backs of Barbadians and charge them more money. Because all of us in here paying it too. All of the taxes that have been applied apply equally to every single person in here as they do to the man on the street, the man in Broad Street, the man in the Fairchild Street bus stand. We are not exempt. All of the pain that the average Barbadian is feeling is being felt by every single person in here. We did not want to do it, but we had to do it. Mr. Deputy Speaker, let's weigh options. Things are going to be rough for a while, but I believe in my heart of hearts that things are going to get better within the foreseeable future. They have started to get better already. Already we have had an upgrade, which means that what we are doing is working. Is working. The international agencies that are looking at us are now seeing something on which they can say, yes, we have some confidence. You understand, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the last government couldn't borrow a red cent from anybody. Coming along to the end of their term, they could not borrow a cent from a fella. Nobody wanted to lend them any money, not to buy a sweetie or toffee. And, Honourable Member, I think we managed to secure over $1 billion in funding. We have secured a lot of money. A lot of money, Mr. Deputy Speaker. People are stepping forward to offer us money, to lend us money at concessionary rates. People are stepping forward to invest in Barbados again. This did not happen up to 6 months ago. Up to 6 months ago, what we are experiencing, the goodwill and the faith in our economy, the surety that Barbadians have that is going to bounce back, that was not there 6 months ago. I asked Barbados to cast their minds back to the 23rd of May. The 23rd of May, the day before the elections, as Barbadians were hoping and praying. Barbadians felt beaten down, and they dared to hope that the election would not be stolen. They dared to hope that the other Barbadians would do what is right. And they came out on the 24th and they said enough is enough. We have lost complete faith in each and every single one of them. And they took them out. And they said, you know what? Let us now put our complete faith in the other option. Let us put our complete faith in the Barbados Labour Party. Barbados got the government it voted for, and we hit the ground running, prepared to work.
That's right.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, understand the difference between the 23rd and the 24th. On the morning of the 25th, when those boxes were declared, and you drove about in Barbados, it felt like the whole country had exhaled. It felt like if something that had been pressing down Barbados had been lifted. People driving and honking, people waving, people hugging up strangers in the streets. They put their faith in us. We have not levied new taxes or tried to increase taxes because we want to. Any taxes that have come in or any levies, Dwight, give me a chance, or any levies that have been levied have been done because there was no other option at that point in time. And the other option, the devaluation of our dollar, was too horrible to contemplate. I would rather have the GSC, I would rather have the fuel levy than have had a devaluation of the dollar, of the Barbados dollar. All the people who are complaining now, about the fact that they're paying $1,000 more a year or $2,000 more a year because of these measures, imagine had the dollar been devalued and you were paying multiples of that because your dollar is worth half of what it was and your salary is the same. When Barbadians, I'm urging Barbadians, when you think about what you are paying now, imagine how much worse it would have been had these measures not been taken to stabilize the dollar. I wish to congratulate those on the economic team. I want to congratulate the member for Christchurch East Central. His task is not easy.
That's right.
He has taken a blistering from Barbados and he took a blistering from us. In the privacy of cabinet, as each measure was introduced, he had to defend it and explain why it was completely necessary. Some things that we heard that we didn't deem critical at this point in time did not pass. But he had to convince everybody else. And I am comfortable, as are the rest on this side, that the measures imposed, no matter the hardship you might feel now, were imposed so we didn't have to feel a greater hardship. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, what we're doing now is not malicious. It is not spiteful. It is not careless or reckless. It is not designed to hurt anyone. What we are doing now and the measures we are imposing now, including this levy, we are doing solely because it is necessary. Mr. Speaker, with those words, I entirely support the motion.
Member for the City of Bridgetown.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I honestly did not intend to speak in this debate this afternoon, but I feel compelled to do so. I didn't want to at first because what is being debated today is nothing new in terms of the bill that is brought to the House. We knew exactly what we said we were going to do, and it has been said in this honorable chamber on more than one occasion. But I feel compelled to speak because I would like to kind of reposition this debate in a sense, because I think that we do not need to spend too much time trying to defend on this occasion that which we boldly said that we were going to do. The thing is, one of the greatest principles of war is the selection and the maintenance of the aim. And the aim of this Barbados Labour Party government, while in opposition, was to seek the advice and the expertise of all Barbadians in all facets of life to help us to shape a plan should we be returned to office, a plan to deal with the economic and the social situation that existed in this country at the time. And we were successful in doing so. And we set about on a journey to stop the bleeding, as the Honourable Prime Minister referred to on numerous occasions, and then to start about to repair the damage and to restore this country to a position of strength, to restore hope and pride in Barbadians once more. And this policy has been articulated in several ways, including the manifesto, the throne speech, and speeches made by the Honourable Minister of Finance, the Honourable Prime Minister, and the Honourable Minister in the Ministry of Finance, and others. And so I am satisfied within my mind that we are on the right track, that we are doing the right things. We have studied this situation carefully, and it is not something that is ad hoc. It is something that is well thought out, well planned, and I must say, well executed thus far. It is not about the individual taxes or whatever we have to do. It's about the overall plan, the destination that we have determined that we will go on this journey in order to do what is required at the end of the day. And we must do so recognizing that there will be some criticism. Because any time that you do something that affects one sector of a community or the other, there will be criticism. And that is a natural phenomenon. And that's human nature. It would be naive of us if we thought that there will be no criticism to the things that we are doing. But when you are confident and assured in what you're doing because you have given it sufficient in-depth thought, then you should not be bothered by criticism. And I, Mr. Deputy Speaker, am not. I am convinced and I am persuaded that what we are doing is the right thing for the people of Barbados. I am convinced and I am persuaded that at the end of the day, we will achieve the aim that we have set about to achieve. I am convinced and I am persuaded that the average Barbadian will appreciate and recognize that what we are doing is in the interest of this country, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I am convinced about what we are doing. And I say this in spite of the challenges and in spite of the difficulties, let us not lose sight of the fact that we were able to pay a 5% wage increase to public servants in this country. That we were able to increase the pension for our elderly people. That we were able to inject much needed funding into the healthcare system to provide better health care for the people of Barbados. That we were able to come up with trust loans to give people a chance to be empowered to become entrepreneurs. That we have been able to pay the tuition fees of Barbadian students attending the University of the West Indies. That we have been able to stave off a devaluation. That we've been able to restructure debt that now gives us the elbow room to do some things that could not have been done for 10 years. These are the things that convince me that we are on the right track. And if there are any persons in this chamber or in this country that doubt that, 10 years of consistent downgrades, that was replaced within 6 months with the first upgrade and with many more to come. So I say to the honourable members of this House and to Barbadians, fellow Barbadians, we will stay the course. We will bend our backs as plastic bag said for the blows, but heaven knows that our victory is yours. We in this honourable chamber on this side, the government side, which is the entire chamber except one.
No, he's still with me.
We should be prepared. I certainly am. I don't mind saying that, yes, my political future is on the line because of the measures that we are taking, because I am absolutely convinced that at the end of the day, Barbados will rise again and we will be vindicated. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, let's return to a level of optimism in this chamber, knowing that in spite of all of the difficulties and the challenges, and yes, sometimes some mistakes will be made along the way, but the thing is, as long as you can recognize when you are going wrong, and you have the will to change direction or change course, that is really what matters. And this Barbados Labour Party has the will, this government has the will, and this government has an economic team that is first class, and that I am absolutely sure will take us to the point where we want to get. With those few words, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am obliged.
Member for Christchurch East Central.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, this chamber has been set alight with the fuel of this resolution. And I want to assure my colleagues that we will certainly continue to build on the momentum that we have thus far created, certainly across the length and breadth of Barbados. And I want to, as I wrap up this particular debate, just put on record certainly some of the initial information with respect to the performance of this measure, but certainly to reorient this debate slightly, because the notion, sir, that we have trivialized in any form or fashion the imposition of this particular tax, I think, says that, or seeks to give the impression that this government certainly has not given enough thought to how it will impact on people. And I can assure, through you, sir, the country, as I indicated in the previous debate, that everything that we are doing, sir, is for a particular purpose, because it fits within the overall plan with respect to the Barbados economic recovery and transformation. And I want to impress upon the honourable member for St. Michael West that I too sat in the presentation with respect to the cost structure as presented by the PSV Association. And the PSVs put to us some numbers that suggest that yes, because they are the ones using, in a sense, that traverse the length and breadth of Barbados the most, that yes, there is a cost, an increased cost with respect to fuel as it relates to the imposition of this measure. But we had to remind them of two things. Now, on the one hand, we reduced their road tax, but when they presented to us, sir, what was the increased cost with respect to fuel, they neglected, sir, in their presentation to us, what was their cost for the disorder that they put on the roads every day, sir. Have the law courts busy with the fines. They never made any representation, sir, with respect to that. And in that discussion, sir, we said to them that they need to be able to clean up their act with respect to that. And that, sir, as we sought to reorient this, and I want to put this in full context, because as we have imposed this measure, and the information that I have available to me up until November 10th, sir, up until November 10th, between July 1st and November 10th of this year, we have so far collected $26.1 million with respect to the fuel tax. $5.9 million in July, $6 million in August, $5.6 million in September, $6.3 million in October, and for the first 10 days of November, 2.1. Totaling 26, which is everybody. So the compliance to which we spoke, as well as the fact that every element of the society is now paying. Now, when we look, sir, at the provision, and I think it's important for us to put this in context, we remove the road tax, and on the one hand, to increase compliance, but then on the other hand, to also make it easier on people to be able to so do, and to reduce the government's cost of collecting the said revenue. When I look at the estimates of expenditure, sir, for 2018-19, which members of the chamber would have a copy of, when I add the provision for highway revenue for motor vehicles, provision at 55.3 million, and approximately 9.9 for highway revenue for PSVs, it comes to a total, sir, of approximately $65 million, both for motor vehicles and PSVs. Based on these projections, sir, and given the non-compliance to which my colleague from the member, for Christchurch West indicated, based on these initial projections, sir, we are on target to collect around $68 million in any single year with respect to this measure, which, sir, on the one hand, reflects the 100% compliance with respect to, in terms of the difference, in terms of what we would have expected to receive, and to the extent that we have been able to reduce the road tax for commercial vehicles, but eliminate in total the road tax for persons with private vehicles in this country. And so, sir, we are confident that we have done the right thing with respect to this particular measure, because we are not hiding and collecting revenue. We have laid bare everything for the people of this country. And that in so doing, sir, yes, there will be holes because persons are seeing are feeling, to use the member for St. Michael West's term, they may perceive as if they're feeling pain. But the reality is, sir, is that throughout the course of their operations, rather than having to face those lump sums annually, all we are doing, sir, is amortizing it over the course of the year. And so therefore it makes it easier, sir, for them to be able to manage their cash flow, because it is something, sir, that they can now plan out as they go about their business. And so we see this, sir, as certainly a win-win with respect to where government is able to reduce its costs of collecting this revenue on the one hand, but then secondly, for persons to be able to, in a sense, pay for what you use, and to the extent that there is equity, sir, equity. When we spoke about many hands making light work, sir, you can't have the advantage, sir, of the infrastructure that the rest of the taxpayers are paying for you to use, and then the portion with respect to the road users in this instance, then you're complaining that you have to make a contribution towards that. And so, sir, we don't take it lightly, because when we spoke about sharing the burden in as equitable a fashion as possible, sir, it means no, sir, that we are seeking to regularize and to make provision such that for those, we don't have a situation where we are cross-subsidizing activity, because where private individuals potentially are subsidizing commercial activity. And so therefore we believe, sir, that this is the fairest way with which to be able to execute this policy. And so, sir, this fuel tax, as equitable as it can be, has allowed, sir, for the government, as I said, through the reform, I should say, of what we did with respect to the BNOC, to allow us to be able to plan out the affairs and manage the cash flow of government in a much more predictable manner. And I think that with that, sir, we have sought to bring a level of confidence and regularity back to the management of the public finances, and this is just but one of the puzzles that we have, the puzzle pieces, that we have put in place, and now we are seeking just to make sure that everything is done in a legal manner, and that the citizens, and certainly as the members for Christchurch West and St. Lucie, as they set about their tasks, that they're able to go forward with a level of calm assurance that they can deliver for the people of Barbados. And so, sir, as I said over and over, and certainly as the Honourable Member for the city indicated to the Chamber just now, we are doing right by the people of Barbados. But it takes hard work to be able to do right by the people. And I would certainly thank the members for their very kind words during this debate and the one previous, because it is, I can say it to the members every time I go to work and I look at the view out at Carlisle Bay, at Bay Street, I get a sense of motivation that Barbados is worth fighting for. And I think that as we come to this chamber, sir, to do the business, the other business of government, which is to make sure that the law, sir, the law and the framework under which we seek to improve the lives of Barbadians, that we do so in a manner that is open and transparent, and that we explain to people, quite frankly, sir, one, how we are doing things, why we are doing things, such that they are able to assess for themselves the performance of this government. And so, sir, I am happy to again stand in this chamber as part of this government to present another bill on behalf of the people of Barbados, which I know, sir, is a critical part of the Barbados economic recovery and transformation. And so, sir, with those few words, I beg to move, that this bill be read a second time.
Can we have a seconder? The question is that this bill be read a second time. All members in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that you do now move from the chair and the House resolve itself in committee for further consideration of this bill.
Seconded. Question is that I do now leave the chair and the House resolve itself in committee for further consideration of this bill. All members in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it.
No, I didn't even move for the Listen, I apologize. I said I moved for the chairs.
Thank you. This committee is now in session.
Clause 1.
That clause 1 stand part.
Question is that clause 1 do now stand part. All those in favor say aye. All those against say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 2.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 2 stand part.
Seconded? Yeah. The question is that clause 2 do now stand part. All those in favor say aye. All those against say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 3.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 3 stand part.
Question is that clause 3 now stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 4.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 4 stand part.
Question is that clause 4 do now stand part. All honourable members in favour say aye. All against say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 5.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 5 stand part.
Question is that clause 5 do now stand part. All members in favour say aye. All against say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 6.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 6 stand part.
Question is that clause 6 do now stand part. All members in favour say aye. All against say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 7.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 7 stand part.
Question is that clause 7 do now stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All against say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 8.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 8 stand part.
Question is that clause 8 do now stand part. All honourable members in favour say aye.
Aye.
All against say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 9.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 9 stand part.
Question is that clause 9 do now stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All against say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 10.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 10 stand part.
Question is that clause 10 do now stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 11.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 11 stand part.
Question is that clause 11 do now stand part. All members in favour say aye. Against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 12.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 12 stand part.
Question is that clause 12 do now stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
The schedule.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the schedule be the schedule to the bill.
Question is that the schedule be the schedule to the bill. All our honourable members in favour, please say aye. All against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do not report to His Honour the Deputy Speaker the passing of one bill in committee.
Could you repeat that, please? I didn't hear him. Could you repeat that, please?
Said, Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do not report to His Honour the Deputy Speaker the passing of one bill in committee.
Question is that we do now report to the Honourable Speaker. All in favour, please say aye. Against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chairman of committees have reported the passing of one bill in committee.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be now read a third time.
Seconded. Question is that this bill be read a third time. All the members in favour say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be now passed and cited as the Fuel Tax Act 2018.
Seconded. Question is that this bill be now passed and so cited. All members in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. This bill is now passed.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I move that this Honourable House of Assembly be adjourned until Tuesday the 4th of December at 10 o'clock in the morning. Speaking on the adjournment, though, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I wish on behalf of this Parliament to extend blessed independence to all Barbadians, both at home and abroad. 52nd anniversary of independence shows a country in its mature state. We have had our challenges within recent times, but the Barbados brand remains strong and firm. We stand, although as a small island state, we stand as a proud member of the world community in many international organizations. We certainly intend, as we have been again for the last 6 months, to be at the forefront of the regional design. We look to move our country to again be a self-sufficient nation state, to eliminate as far as possible poverty among our people, to restore hope and pride in the Barbadian brand. I wish, of course, all members of this Parliament a happy independence. We, of course, have the Independence Parade early Friday morning, 8 o'clock, and we invite all Barbadians to that parade, symbolic act of our independence. I know that virtually all, if not all, members of Parliament would be in their constituencies at some stage over the 3-day weekend. I know that some of my colleagues have activities within their constituency on Friday, certain events, and we look forward to a crime-free weekend. We call on Barbadians to respect the law and let's have great fun without any violence or criminal activity. May the Lord bless Barbados. May the Lord bless us all.
Member for the Michael West.
Deputy Speaker, I'd like to join with the Leader of Government Business in expressing on behalf of those of us on this side best wishes for every good blessing for this country as we celebrate our 52nd anniversary of independence. Our country is about to, may have already entered, for many people, a period of serious testing, but often in life, the experience is that the moment of trial allows for the element of maturity to best reflect itself. And I am sure that the best of the Barbadian spirit will rise to the occasion in these difficult and challenging times as led by the government of the day, and will respond to the challenges adequately. And my sincere prayer and wishes that we will come out on the other side a much better nation than we are today. May also offer best wishes to those on the government side as we celebrate together our 52nd anniversary.
Oblige. Member for the City of Bridgetown. Member for the City of Bridgetown.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I just wanted to take this opportunity as the chair of the Cabinet Subcommittee dealing with the independence celebration, since we are speaking about independence, just to remind...
Speaking in the mic.
Just to remind all that the parade obviously will be held, as we have been saying in the press, on the 30th at Kensington Oval. And tickets have been distributed at various locations to facilitate the public. I'm very much aware that the tickets have been going very, very quickly and people have been asking for tickets. It is our intention on the day to allow as many people as we possibly can into the venue without compromising safety. But I would also like to say that there's one or two other activities once the parade and the procession, the We Barbados procession, leave Kensington Oval. They will proceed up Fontebelle, up Broad Street, to pay compliments to the Prime Minister in Hero Square. And there are 4 areas along that route that there will be some school bands and also some community groups like the Israel Level Foundation and Haynesville Drummers and so on that will be providing entertainment for those persons who would normally come and line the road that do not come to the venue. So there will be other entertainment along the way, so I think it's going to be a great time for all. So even if you are unable to get into the venue, you will still be able to observe the procession up to Hero Square and also the fine Barbadian music and drumming and dancing that will be on the road. Thank you.
I too will want to wish all members, clerk at the table, security forces, the caterers, happy independence. On behalf of the Speaker who is aware on Parliament business, I want to wish all of you and your families and hope that all Barbadians will truly experience the true meaning of independence. With that being said, the question is that this House be now adjourned until Tuesday the 4th of December at 10 o'clock in the morning. Tuesday the 4th? Have I get it right? Tuesday the 4th. At 10 o'clock in the morning. All members in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. This House is now adjourned until Tuesday the 4th of December at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Joe, you said all those on your side.
One of these days you'll understand.